of your emotions can cut this way. Yet in all your might and glory, vanished from the sky. Just another story, man-made life. They tell us how it fell from the sky.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free American Hour. I'm your host, Clay Douglas. Soon to be publisher again of the Free American. We'll just be doing it online this time. You might want to go ahead and get subscribed to it because you'll be getting a lot of bonuses on it. And my guest today is Dr. John Vandenberge. Hello, John. How are you?
Good morning, Clay. Fine, thank you. Glad to be on.
Nice to have you here, sir. You were born in Holland, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you went through World War II, you know.
Right.
And John, I don't know if you're keeping up with the political situations, but I see a lot of similarities to what happened in Europe and what happened in Russia happening in America today. And on your website, you say, how would you feel if your town were suddenly invaded by foreign soldiers? And we've been talking about this on this exact thing happening on this radio show for a few years. Now, you also talk about how do parents provide for the family when there are severe shortages of food and supplies.
Right.
Now, on the news that's been passing over my desk here, and I read just about everything from all over the world, they're talking about food shortages again here,
yes,
and the potential here.
Well, to come back to your first point, the Dutch government was warned before World War II because they had arrested some spies, German spies, who were taking photographs of military installations, bridges, harbor facilities, and airports. And they were warned that the Nazis are up to something. Excuse me. But the Dutch government just ignored it. They didn't think Hitler was going to do anything. First of all, he had promised to Queen Wilhelmina that he would not invade Holland. And secondly, they thought that since Holland and Switzerland managed to remain neutral in the First World War, they thought they could do it again. So they were totally unprepared, and they ignored the warnings. And the warnings today are sort of similar, because here we have Islamic jihadists, the fanatic jihadists of the Islam persuasion. They've infiltrated this country. Their tentacles are in the highest level of government, and in their mosques they're teaching jihad philosophy to many Muslims, and they're supposed to be peaceful, peace-loving people, the Muslims, but someday they could rise up, and these fanatic Islamic jihadists, they're the ones with the weapons that are killing Christians and Jews in Africa and all over the place, and their intent is to take over the world. And we have been warned, and many legislators don't see it that way, unfortunately.
And this has happened time and time again in country. Didn't the same thing happen in Russia and China? In the Chinese.
I've been amazed. I mean, after World War II, thinking as a young boy, as a young man, I was thinking it's amazing how often masses of people are being deceived. And the German people, they're nice people. They were well educated, cultured, and all that, and they voted Hitler in, actually.
Yes, sir. Just like we have voted Obama in this country right now.
That's right. And today is election day in Maryland. Some people on the radio this morning called eviction day, and they hope to evict a lot of the socialists, and Marxists, and communists, and people that think like that. But in World War II, it was just very bad. War is a horrible thing, and I was thinking in those days after the war, I was thinking, how is it that intelligent, cultural, educated people can do such cruel things to each other? But of course, it's basically a spiritual battle. we saw that all during the war.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about it being a spiritual battle, and you know the Bible tells us a lot about what's coming to us.
Yes, we had when the Nazis came in, where we lived in Rotterdam. The first day of the war, I remember very vividly. I saw, looking out of our window, our third floor apartment across the street, we saw some neighbors in pajamas talking and gesturing, and we wondered what in the world was going on. And my father listened to the radio, he turned it on, and he found out that the Nazis had invaded Holland. And when the Nazi troops came to Rotterdam, the Dutch Marines stopped them at the Maas River Bridge. And they managed to stop them from crossing the Maas River Bridge to come to our area for 4 days. And then the Nazis couldn't wait any longer, and they started to bomb the city. And my father worked for the government, for the employment office, and he was downtown when the bombing started. And he ran out of his building into the lobby of the next building, and then he zigzagged his way home, running in and out of lobbies of buildings, and behind him they were destroyed. So when he came home, he was out of breath, and his dark suit was covered with white dust from the buildings that had been collapsed. And so he just barely escaped, and we thank the Lord for that, of course. And when he came home, he said, we have to flee, because he thought the whole city was going to get bombed. And we ran out. My mother grabbed the baby carriage and some diapers for my baby brother, and we quickly ran as fast as we could out of Rotterdam into the suburbs and stayed with friends for a couple of days. And then after a few days, we were able to go back to our apartment, and fortunately it was not damaged, and even my brother's canary was still alive. And so we managed to survive those first few days. But then it just became slowly worse and worse. The food shortages, the threats, and everything. It was just, war is a horrible thing.
Now, what occurred during this? And you know, I appreciate you putting your book. The name of the book is From Tyranny to Freedom.
Right. And that's exactly what it is. When your freedom is taken away, it's just such a horrible thing, because suddenly you become like a number, and you're at the disposal of the enemy. They can do with you what you want. They can kill you, they can take you prisoner, they can do whatever you want. Of course, nobody could have any weapons, and we were constantly being threatened. And there were curfews from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., where you had to stay inside, and you take the risk of your life. If you step outside in the street, they could just mow you down and kill you. And then the food shortages became slowly worse and worse and worse over a 5-year period. I remember that milk started to look like just white water, and there were rationing tickets, but slowly the rationing tickets didn't buy much, and there were fewer and fewer rationing tickets, and just a lot of hunger, disease, poor medical care, just all kinds of shortages. And on top of that, we were visited sometimes by the Nazis, by some soldiers in the middle of the night. They would knock on the door like 2:30 in the morning, and they came in. You had to let them in, and they inspected our apartment, and the attic, the closets, everything. I remember lying in bed, and this big German soldier came in my bedroom with a flashlight shining in my eyes, and under the bed see what was there. And why did they come in and inspected our apartment? You think they might be looking for if we were hiding any weapons, but that was not the reason. Nor did we have any anti-Nazi literature. That we didn't have that either. The only reason they came in our apartment, and this happened several times, is to see if we were hiding any Jewish people. Now think of that. The Israelis, they had not invaded Germany. The Dutch Jewish people were totally innocent, and Hitler wanted the Jewish people annihilated. So they persistently looked for Jewish people. And at that time, we were not hiding any Jewish people in our apartment, and so after a while they would leave. But my father and my uncle, they hid some 25 Jewish people under the pulpit of our church. We were part